energy we need, people, okay? Thank you very much for coming. Thank you so much. Does anyone need the QR code? I'm going to be that annoying person. Did you scan it this morning? Yes, Stacy, I scanned it. Okay, gosh, come on. I'm not asking for my son's energy. I'm asking for yes, okay. So I'm not going to put that up then. I'm going to put up the presentation. Yes. Oh, okay. No, you're good. Hey, that's why I asked. I'm trying to think if there's anything else funny that my son's done lately. He calls me poopy butt a lot. That's a new thing. It's fun though. I like it. And he calls his grandma poopy butt. It's kind of funny. So I'm just like, yeah, you get what you get. You don't throw a fit. I know she wants something endearing like grandma. It's just like, hey, poopy butt. Okay, are we good with the QR code? Okay. I will put it up for lunch so you guys can do that. Okay. I will probably go through this rather quickly, but it just seems like we're not appropriating everything, or we're not determining if we have an appropriation to spend prior to spending the money. And that's not all on you guys, okay? It's not all on you guys. There are other parties at play in this. It's just what role does the auditor's office play? I need to put this down. Okay, I'm just going to swing it around. So put that down. Okay, so let's talk appropriations. So again, control over the funds. To disperse, you need to consider the balance in the fund, so your cash balance. Funds may not be overspent as a rule. Again, we can't spend more than what we have. Permission to spend appropriations. There must be authority to disperse the funds. And we've touched on this extensively. I feel yesterday we talked about it a lot, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but every fund, unless statute states otherwise, there should be an appropriation. I want to say that the most common question that we get regarding appropriations is, do I have to have it before I spend the money, or can I get it later? My answer to you guys is always going to be, you need permission to spend prior to that claim going out. Again, department heads should be able to see what appropriations they have, what they don't have. It shouldn't all be on you guys, but whenever it comes to payment of claims, that's one of your guys' steps, is to say, is there sufficient appropriation, and what fund is it going from, and is an allowable use of the funds? You're looking at that all kind of at the same time. If not, you're doing it one right after the other. Those should be thought processes that are going through whenever you are, again, spending money, looking at those appropriations. Again, we look at it during audit. It's going to be, well, at the end of the year is when we're looking at it. Did you have appropriation by the end of the year? So there are some times where you need to pay a claim, but you don't have appropriation. Well, by the end of the year, do you have sufficient appropriations to cover those expenses? Because that's what we're going to look at when we come in an audit. We're going to say, by the end of the year, was there sufficient appropriation to cover expenditures from the fund? If not, that's when you would typically see a comment, because you didn't do the additional appropriations. And I know sometimes at the end of the year you get pinched because, hey, I got to pay payroll. However, we didn't plan appropriately, we didn't budget, and we need an additional appropriation. Sometimes it happens. So I would just recommend kind of starting now going, hey, do I have sufficient appropriations? If not, get those additionals in, because the worst thing you can do is mid-December go, oh man, I don't have enough. What do I do? And then I'm going to be like, I don't know. What are you going to do? Because we don't have time. We need to advertise for those, go through the process, things like that. So time constraints, I just want you guys to be aware of that. Kind of in November at the latest, looking to see if you have sufficient appropriations to cover those expenses, okay? I think that's probably the most common time is in December whenever we get the, hey, right before Christmas. And I'm like, you ain't got time for that. So we need a plan moving forward. And again, that's not all you guys, but everyone looks to you guys. They look to you guys for the answer. Sorry, you guys have the really hard job of knowing all the things, okay? So again, that's good but bad because everyone's going, what do I do? So you're having to fix everyone else's problems. But I believe in you guys, okay? I believe in you. You can fix it. Some things we can't fix, but this we can fix, okay? So appropriation to spend is in 36252B. I just wanted you guys to have that. So this is the council. The fiscal body shall appropriate money to be paid out of the county treasury. Again, nothing new. Publishing the budget. I wanted to include this statute in here. Again, this is more of a refresher for you guys, okay? Disbursements under budget, so 6.1.1.18.4, except as otherwise provided in this chapter, the proper officers of a political subdivision shall appropriate funds in such a manner that the expenditures for the year do not exceed its budget for the year as finally determined under this article. So that's what I talk about, that by the end of the year, you should have sufficient appropriations to cover your expenditures, okay? So that's one thing that I always do say that, hey, if you don't have it, get it before the end of the year. That's where, again, during audit, we're going to be looking at those things. Disbursements without appropriation. Statute does provide for disbursements without an appropriation. So 362914 is a good place to start. SBOA called conferences. Surplus tax funds, distributions to other taxing units, Title 4D incentive funds, and repayment of temporary loans. That's just to name a few. We do have a bulletin article that covers a list of these things. If you would like a little bit more information, I will talk this afternoon about where our bulletins have now been hidden on our website. So we'll get there, okay? It's like hide and seek. Marshall likes to play every day, so I just figured you guys wanted to play too. So I was like, they won't find him ever. So, okay. Home ruled funds, we talked about this extensively, so I'm not going to go over it. However, additional appropriations. So I feel like I send this statute, if not like 3 to 4 times a week. Again, this is not where I live. So typically all I can do is say, hey, statute, this is what statute says. So unfortunately, when you guys ask me about additionals, this is where I'm going to point you. You have to follow those procedures as set out in 6.1.1.18.5. I think the most common question I always get is regarding advertising and things like that. And what does need to have additional appropriations, things to that effect. Okay, exceptions. I wanted to just give you guys the information. We don't have a lot of questions regarding it, but insurance funds. 6.1.1.18.7. So again, this is whenever you receive money from an insurance claim, you received it in and you need to buy something new because something happened. Doesn't require appropriation. There's statute that covers that, especially within that year of receiving it. So let's say a server was damaged. You have insurance money to purchase that new server, then you don't have to appropriate it. You receive those funds to replace that one item already. Go ahead, spend the money without appropriation. You have statutory authority that you don't need to get an additional appropriation, okay? This supports that. Reimbursements of state and federal grant funds is in 6.1.1.18.7.5, and then erroneous or excessive disbursements is in 6.1.1.18.9. Does anyone need me to cover those? I mean, statute explains those pretty clearly, but I just wanted to give you that information just in case you had questions about where to find it, okay? Now, probably, I keep saying most frequently asked question. I don't know how many times. Yes, I feel like I had a hand. Hold on. I don't.
I just have a question about the insurance.
Yes.
Then if you go to pay it out of a equipment line or whatever,
Yeah.
you're supposed to spend that line.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just do an adjustment without it going council or you're paying?
Yes, I would recommend doing that. You could see that's the thing with some of your guys' software systems. it's going to look like you overspent the line. So some people go in and just adjust the appropriation and not go through council, because technically you don't have to go through council for that. I would say in this case, to make sure it's all clean and everything, you could do a manual adjustment to that so that it doesn't look like you're exceeding it. Some counties, I don't know, do you guys have more strict procedures over that? I know that some do, like every single adjustment needs to be approved by council. But if that's not the case and it's more, you have the authority to just spend, you don't need to go to council. So to make your records look clean, I think that that's fine. Yeah. Did everyone hear that question, or did I need to like repeat it? You good? Okay. So transfers of appropriations. So if we are transferring within the same departmental budget and the same major budget classification, you can do that. The auditor or council per county policy. And this is where it starts getting to, if you guys have more strict policies regarding transfers of appropriations, this is where, based off of your county, what do you have in place? If you don't have another policy in place that says that council has to approve every transfer, then they don't have to. But we're talking about something that's within, like, if we're talking about within MVH, and we're talking about personal services, and we're going from personal services, and let's go from just like a salary, between salary lines that you have set up. That's within the same major classification. So you, unless you have a local policy, you can transfer within those classifications, okay? Because we're in the same major departmental budget, the same major budget classification, you can transfer within those personal services. However, if you go from personal services to supplies, you're outside of those major budget classifications, okay? So you guys as auditors can do those transfers unless you have a local policy that says council has to approve every single transfer. How many of you actually have policies that say that? Probably makes your life really hard. Yeah, yeah. So that's one thing that I always say, because you guys will go, can I do this? And it's like, well, you can. Statute allows you to, unless you have a local policy. And if I don't know what your local policy is. So it doesn't seem like a lot of counties have that. So, I mean, you just have to be cognizant of that. So between major budget classifications, we already kind of talked about this. Council needs to approve those. Transfer of appropriations across departmental budgets. So this is one that comes up a lot, because I think sometimes when we're thinking about something, we go, oh, I just need to increase over here. Well, if you're moving something, you need to decrease. If that's what they're really intending to do, is move things within the budget, and we're wanting to transfer those appropriations, then we're going to say, okay, well, I need to decrease this appropriation, increase this one, then then we go through DLGF, and this is like those additional appropriation procedures, because we're decreasing one, increasing another, which that means you need an additional appropriation to do so. So does that, I feel like there's a lot of questions whenever it comes to that. Some people forget to reduce, because if you're really transferring appropriations across like different funds and things like that, then you need to be cognizant of the reduction and the increase. Okay. Transfer of funds. You may transfer from a fund's cash balance only if there's authority to make the transfer. I promise I'm not being sassy whenever you guys send me an email and say, hey, can I transfer this cash to this fund? And if I'm not aware of any statutory authority, my first question is, where's the authority for you to transfer the funds from this fund to this fund? Show me. If it's something that I'm not aware of, point it out to me. There are only some funds that do allow you to transfer from one fund to another fund, okay? So you just need to be cognizant of that. I know lots of times, I think the confusion comes into place where, depending on which governing body you're speaking to, they can walk into your office and they can say, I want to transfer money. Are we transferring actual cash? Are we transferring actual appropriation? Getting that clarification is very key, because If it's council, they're probably talking about appropriations. However, you do have some council that will say, no, the cash needs to be transferred. Well, that's a completely different thing. So I would recommend, as you have new council and things like that, that whenever they start talking about transfers, you clarifying in the very beginning, are we talking appropriation or are we talking cash? Because I countless times whenever I have calls, not necessarily with you guys, but most of the time with council or even department heads. I think some department heads have a difficult time understanding appropriation and cash because they view them as the exact same thing. In your guys' worlds, they are different things. I see you guys like shaking your head like, oh yeah. I mean, it is. So that distinguishment is very, very important. So I would recommend that anytime I talk to someone on the phone, my first question is appropriation or cash. And if they don't understand the difference between those, I think it would be helpful for you to clarify that appropriation is just permission to spend. Cash is the actual cash in the fund. I can't transfer that without statutory authority. However, appropriations, we can move those. There are ways to do that. There's mechanisms, okay? One of the examples is the rainy day fund, which you guys are you guys know about this one, so there's nothing new with that. So that's just an example I wanted to leave there. There are other funds that do allow you to do transfers. So if you ever have a question and you're not sure if you can transfer cash from one fund to another, just ask me. That's not a stupid question in my book because you don't know. You don't have the time, you haven't looked into it, or you can't find the statute that maybe, again, reading statute is difficult. We're not all attorneys. So you open up a section of code and you're like, I have no idea where to figure out where it says I can or can't transfer. So you guys asking that question, it's not stupid at all. That's an easy one for me. I can be like here, and I'm not aware of anywhere that I can see a transfer is allowed. So, okay. Grant funds, we touched on this yesterday, so federal grants funds received as advance grants do not require appropriation because they follow the grant agreement and those allowable costs. The grants would provide the limit. So in a sense, the second they sign that grant agreement, you're only getting those dollars. You're getting nothing above that, nothing in excess of that, so you do not need an appropriation because you've signed a contract, you know what you're going to spend, you have a limit, okay? So in your system, if you have set an appropriation, then it's the limit of the contract. That's it. It's easy. State grants require appropriation. We will not take audit exception when there's an advance grant. So detail budget in the grants. Again, this is very kind of what I said on the other slide, but for state grants. Okay. Reimbursement grants. Mike touched on this yesterday. You guys are spending, I think the issue with reimbursement grants, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you guys inherited some reimbursement grant funds and you have no idea what they are and they've just been sitting on your ledgers. And then all of a sudden a department comes to you and says, the grant's over. And you're like, that's cool, it's negative. Why is it negative? And they're like, oh, well, like you only put like some of the grant funds back in there, or you have too much expenses, but they are coming to you and saying, can you fix it? And you're like, but I don't know about it. So this puts you guys in a very difficult position because you're then contacting us and saying, how do I fix it? Either I have too much in the fund, and whenever they see a positive cash balance, they're like, I have money left to spend. No, you don't. You spent it all. We just didn't put the correct expenses in the fund, okay? Whenever you have negative, we either overspent what was reimbursed or you haven't gotten the other reimbursement yet. So again, I'm not being a sassy lady when I email you guys, so I never want you guys to read that tone in it, but my questions are very, okay, well, if you have positive cash, do we move the correct expenses in there? It gets a little bit more difficult when we're moving expenses from one year to the next year. It looks funny whenever you guys do it because we're having to do a correction of error, but it's looking like a transfer because you have to go back to that department that actually spent the grant money and be like, okay, I'm giving you homework. This is what I need from you because I don't know what you guys did. What money did you spend from the fund, or what did you get reimbursed? The expenses are not in this fund. Make them start there, okay? That's the best starting place. And once you go to them and you ask them to look into it, they should be able to answer the questions for you, because if they're the ones filling out those reimbursement requests, they should be able to tell you what those reimbursement requests were for and what expenses tie to those. Then you determine were they properly recorded in that fund, yes or no, and then you know how to proceed from there, okay? So if you guys have questions about that, those are like the fun questions I get whenever you're like, this is what I have, and you guys have already done the homework, and I'm like, this is what we do. And then we just talk about how to make the correction. So again, not a stupid question, not something you guys should know how to do because, again, you didn't know about them, okay? So again, anytime you have questions about those, please send us an email. More than happy to help you with how to get rid of those grant funds that have just been sitting there. And I know that sometimes you guys have those funds that just drive you crazy, and you're like, I don't know what these are. These are those funds. So we'll figure them out, okay? Okay, encumbrances, it's really not that time of the year to do encumbrances, so I'm just gonna kind of go through this, but we have bulletin articles on encumbrances. It's a accounting mechanism, okay, to hold over a portion of the prior year's budget for expenses. How many of you do not actually do encumbrances? Okay, there's a few of you that don't. A lot of you probably do. Kind of makes your life more difficult, doesn't it? Because everyone wants to encumber everything. Because there is also that misconception that I didn't use it, I'm gonna lose it. And like there's that grab back of money, but like that's not the case. So I think they think, again, appropriations are cash. There's that weird that they're believing like you're taking money away from me. No, it's not going anywhere, because especially with those non-reverting funds, it's staying in the fund. So having that conversation with department heads before the end of the year, because when you tell them they can't encumber something, that's whenever my phone rings. And I'm like, well, I agree with them. And I'm just like, it's going to be there. No one's taking it from you. But again, these were approved by council, must have underlying reasons. We also have a bulletin article on this that includes these reasons. So a lawful contract that has not been fully paid, purchase orders dated prior to 12/31, bond issue proceeds, state or federal grant contracts or agreements with local match funds, okay? So, and this is why I said it's really not that time of the year to kind of do these. Budget January 1 to December 31. Encumbrances need to carry forward into a new budget year. For grant periods, July 1 to June 30th, there's no encumbrances needed on June 30th. So I only have 1 minute. We can talk about questions later, and you guys can go ahead and go to lunch. I'll see you at 1 o'clock.